Well, hey, good evening, everyone. It's Al with Longoria House Dog Training. Hey, thanks so much for joining me again for our next Q&A. So I'm going to make sure a couple of things are getting done real quick, but hey, thanks so much for joining in tonight. Just want to see a few things, make sure that this live stream is coming up. Just so you understand the format of this, what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to go over a topic, and once I go over that topic, then I'm going to begin to scroll through y'all's different questions and comments and begin to respond to those. Hey, if it looks like I skipped a question or comment, please type it up again so that way I can see it come up. Sometimes it can get a little frantic trying to manage all of those, all of the messages. Well, hey, I hope you guys are having a fantastic evening. And so I'm gonna check one more little thing, make sure that this is up. Okay, there it is. I see you guys. Make sure I got my volume down. I should be able to see it there. All right, so the very first topic that I actually want to talk about tonight is something that I hear a lot, and it's a little controversial, but I'm not afraid to necessarily go over the controversial topics. But I just want to kind of give some clarity. One thing I want to tell you guys is I just have a lot of love for the rescue community. The rescue community, they just do such amazing work. I see the cases where dogs have been injured, or maybe they've got some medical things going on, or you know, God knows what. But you know, sometimes we just treat dogs really very, very badly, and the rescue community does so much for them. But there's one thing that I see in folks that are involved in this, and not everybody, but there are some of those, and even it comes to dog owners, where these dogs are called a rescue dog. And so I just want to tell you from my perspective as a dog trainer, a couple of things that I actually want you to consider when you call your dog a rescue dog. So one of the things that I'm really passionate about is that the last day that a dog is actually a rescue dog is the day that it leaves the shelter or the foster, the rescue organization, and comes into your home. Once that dog is in your home, I think that last day is a day that you could maybe feel soft and, you know, just real sad, and just, you know, for the dog that, hey, you've had this really bad past that we're not so sure what happened. But then the next day, I think this is one of the most beautiful things, begins the transformation of the dog from a rescue dog into the family dog. And why am I bringing this up? Well, I see sometimes when I get questions from people that they preface their question with, my dog is a rescue dog. And so a lot of times that just implies that we feel sorry for them, and that we may actually be coddling a lot of their behaviors. So I just want you to know that I think for us as humans, it's important that we get past the mentality that they were a rescue dog. Like, yeah, tough stuff happened, but now they're a dog, and we have to become optimistic for them, because maybe they didn't have a lot of hope. Maybe they've even got anxiety and stuff like that. But we have to be the optimists that are going to pull the dog forward into the life that it was intended to have, to begin to change the dog's life for good. But I feel that label of, hey, you're a rescue dog, really kind of defeats the dog in a way, and maybe even defeats our ability to effectively lead them. So just think about that. Hey, and for you guys that are rescuers, thank you so much for what you do. I couldn't do what you do. It's just, it takes a tremendous person to be able to rescue. But I would ask you, if you're in rescue, or if you've rescued dogs, please do not call your dog a rescue dog anymore. They are your family dog, and then now it's time to encourage them and to make them be the best dog possible. And if we can help in any way, that's what I would love to do. I'd love to help you, to show you how to take your dog from something that wasn't so great to something that's even better. All right. So the very first question that I have this evening is actually what kind of spurred me wanting to talk about this whole my dog is a rescue. So let me just kind of go over the question, read it to give some context, and I'll go from there. Hey, but for those of you guys that are watching right now, say hello. Hey, Coral, nice to see you. Thanks for saying hello. I really want you to just say hi if you're here. Love to. And if you have questions, feel free to ask. But if this is your first time here, hey, just hang out, kind of watch. I'm going to be going over, I've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that I want to cover that I think that are going to be useful. Okay, so here's the first question. So the first question is, my dog is a fearful 1.5-year-old German Shepherd, and the dog is showing flight, is avoidant, and is also showing fear aggression. And he's having a very difficult time with humans, and he's only accepting the dog, the wife and the husband. So when I begin to look at these things, the very first thing that I look at anytime that we're dealing with a puppy, because this is still a puppy at 1.5 years of age, anytime that I'm seeing a dog that's this young and that is showing aggression, the first question that I'm going to have is, what skills are being worked on to give the dog confidence? So again, what skills are being worked on to give the dog confidence? I really want the dog, like if it's a fearful dog and they're not good at any particular thing, then these things of flight, avoidance, and fear aggression are going to continue to work to solve problems for the dog. Let me just show you this. Let's just say that the mailman is walking up the entryway to your home and your dog goes to the window and begins to bark. And so that is a defensive thing. The hackles are up, the dog is barking, very, very rigid in its behavior. It's very defensive. So if the dog is barking, okay, that's aggression right there, fear aggression. And then the mailman turns around and leaves, and then the barking subsides, the dog's brain is going to tell it to do that again, and that aggression is going to build because the dog's bark in its mind made the person go away. The dog doesn't understand that the mailman's going to stop in each and every place. So when it comes to dealing with like dogs that are fear aggressive towards humans, it's not actually about how many treats or cookies or petting that other people can do, but actually the dog recognizing the leadership of its owners, that the owners actually have some tools to begin to calm the dog. And part of that is also telling the dog that when you become aggressive towards humans, you can actually get in trouble for that. Now, what does trouble look like? It's different for every dog, but I want you to understand the principle that is going to control how the dog is going to overcome these fears. So it's perfectly okay that if your dog begins to act aggressively towards a person, to make your dog uncomfortable and to tell them no. Now, I didn't say injure the dog, and I didn't say use pain. I said make them uncomfortable. And there's a difference for all those things. So with this young dog, the very first thing that I'm going to do for this very young dog is I'm going to teach them the place command. I'm going to teach them to get onto an elevated bed. You're going to receive all your meals there for a week to 2 weeks. And that each and every time that you come off of your bed, and we've put you on there, that we're going to use the leash with pressure to put you back. And then I'll introduce a human. I'll ask a human to come over after I've spent maybe a week showing the dog this particular skill. And so then when the human walks in the room, I'm going to let the dog choose what it wants to do. Do you want to come off the bed? Do you want to stand up on the bed and begin to bark at the person? Or do you want to stand down and get rewarded? And it's perfectly fine for the dog to do any of those things. But at the moment the dog makes any one of those 3 decisions, come off, stay on, or stay in the down, if the dog comes off to become aggressive towards the person, just 1 step, comes off, then I'm going to use my leash to remind my dog that you must stay even though that person just walked in the room. This is going to assert your leadership. But let me give you another scenario. That person walks in, the dog doesn't come off the bed and is actually quiet. Well, I probably in the beginning would begin to reward the dog and show it that, hey, you made a good decision there to not bark at my friend that just walked in the house. And it doesn't just have to be the bed. It could be the elevated bed. It could be teaching the dog to sit on your left-hand side and showing them how valuable that is. But what does have to happen when the dog breaks the behavior that you're showing it, this is the thing that I want you to do, when you put pressure there, and the pressure subsides when the dog goes back to doing the right thing, that's actually going to give the dog a mechanism instead of fear aggression, instead of throwing bites, instead of avoiding, because it's going to know that that's the thing that you want it to do. So that's actually how I would start. I would either do the elevated bed or I would do the sit position by your side and show the dog how wonderful that is. And you need to put some work into it. I'm going to go over something that's 1, 2, 3, 4 topics down. And this is talking about reward history. Actually, I'm sorry, it's only 3 topics down. I'm going to talk about reward history, and this reward history is an important component of the stuff that I just talked about. Well, hey, I hope that's really helpful for you. If you're having a lot of issues with your German Shepherd being fear aggressive, I would absolutely love to come and show you how to get your dog to understand that. Okay, so what if the dog is in the place command but visibly nervous? What if he doesn't remove his stare from the person? Hey, this is a great question. Hey, thanks so much for asking that. So look, before this happens, if you're thinking that the dog's just going to be locked into the other person and doesn't come off, I'm okay with that for a little bit, maybe right at the beginning. But you do at some point need to be able to get attention off of that person and back to you. But I'm going to tell you at the very early stages, the attention isn't all that important. It's just important that maybe he just first begin to relax. The easiest way to relax the dog is to let that other human be in the environment at a safe distance, and then to let the dog begin to relax. But it's also important at the same time to get the dog to become accountable to that. Now, I would normally tell you that asking your dog a question like a prompt, hey, do you want to work? Having the dog look directly at you and then clicking and rewarding is what you should do. But under the circumstances, when your dog is nervous, using a click to ask for attention and rewarding is not in your best interest. Okay, now I'm going to give you a couple reasons why. One, okay, the nervousness. Okay, look, so when he locks onto the other person, that just means that the other person is the most important in the environment. That means that people are too rare and that he feels that he has to be defensive. But if you begin to set that boundary, he's going to learn to back off some. So here's the other thing, okay? He has to relax. If he's looking at the other person a lot, you're going to have to snap him out of it, okay? Now, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I'm not going to give you specific advice here because I need to really see the dog to tell you what's the best way to snap him out of it. But suffice it to say, there has to be something sufficient, a sufficient tap from a leash, maybe a remote collar, maybe a pinch collar. It doesn't need to be painful or even jarring to the dog. It just needs to be a tap to get him to break attention from the person that he's looking at. But I would just tell you, if you're just patient and you allow the dog to begin to relax, that's good. Some things you should avoid here is petting the dog, while he's looking at the person. And I absolutely would not be saying a single word to the dog while we're doing this. Well, hey, like I said, love to help you with this. Try some of these things that I've said, but you need to make some people a little bit more commonplace in the dog's life. If it was me, okay, if I knew that I could keep people and my dog safe, I would practice this in my front yard when people are coming home from work, so he could see all of that and he could understand that, hey, the only way that I'm going to eat is if I'm actually paying attention to my people, and that every time I come off of my bed, that my handler is going to hold me accountable to that. Well, hey, we'd love to work with you and to help you with your dog. Thanks so much for the question. So, hey guys, I did want to move on to something a little different for a moment. We do have a contest that is going on. If you guys have been watching, I don't know if you saw the Facebook contest that we had last week. Hey Rob, how you doing, man? Good to see you. Hey Lou, how you doing, bro? It's good to see you. So we did have a contest. Over the weekend on Facebook, and so the way that I actually went and announced that contest, okay, is if you are subscribed to our newsletter, we actually told you when the contest was going to start and all of the rules. So I'm not going to tell you necessarily when the contest is going to start again for this week, but we are going to do another contest. Now, something that I want to do special for you guys, is for any of you guys that actually sign up for our newsletter tonight. If you sign up for our newsletter tonight, I'm going to give away 3 prizes to people that sign up for newsletters. Now remember, if you sign up for the newsletter, that's where you're going to find out about the big contest that I'm going to have over the weekend, okay, where you're going to be able to win up to a $100 bag of dog food. So here's the little miniature contest. We're going to pick 3 people tonight, okay, that sign up for a newsletter, and we're going to give away a few different things, and then I'm going to ask you what you want. So here's some of the things I'm going to be able to give away. Here is this bag of puppy food. I don't know if you can see that, looks like there's a lot of glare, but this is from Origin, okay? Really, really great puppy food. So this is one of the things that you can get if you sign up for our newsletter tonight. The other thing, okay, we also have this other bag of dog food, okay? This is from McKenna. These 2 companies are foods. These 2 companies make foods. This one company makes 2 brands of food. Let me get that right. This company makes these 2 brands of food, and this is what we actually feed our dogs. And then the third thing that you could choose if you sign up for a newsletter is I'm actually going to be giving away, again, a pair of my favorite dog toys, okay? Actually, as I grabbed it, my dog Fritz is here in the room with me. He immediately came over and says, "Oh, you got the balls? Are we gonna go play with those?" So anyway, here he is. He's being a good boy. So hey, if you sign up for our newsletter, we're gonna give those away to 3 people at random that sign up tonight, okay? All right, guys, well, I'm going to take a sip of water, and then I'm going to go on. Hey, thanks again so much for everybody that's watching this. So much appreciate you guys signing in tonight. I hope this is useful. Hey, and if you're watching this after the fact, hey, thanks so much. One thing that you can do is you can go down into the comments below, or actually into the description if this is on YouTube, and you can go right to the topic that I'm talking about. And we have several topics. The first topic that I have was just talking about the rescue mentality, or talking about my dog is a rescue. The second one I talked about, just finished that a moment ago, is that my dog, fearful, aggressive dogs, and how can we get them to actually become calmer around people. Hi Gerda, how are you doing tonight? So the next thing to do, this is another case with aggression, and this is a question that I received. So here it is. Once a dog has attacked another dog, and this actually happened 2 times that one dog attacked the other, are they always going to be unpredictable? So the good news is, no, they're not always going to be unpredictable. What I have found that happens with a lot of these dogs is that we probably get a little too lax with the rules inside the household. I'll tell you this, when I had, about a year ago, I owned 3 dogs. One of my dogs has since passed away. But I had 3 dogs. I had Jasmine, I have Fritz, who's here with me, and I also have Gabby. And it was really interesting to see the dynamic of the pack early on. Now, 3 dogs is definitely harder than 2, especially from pack mentality. But what I'll tell you is what I saw in Gabby particularly. I remember one day that I had given her something. I'd given her a bully stick as a reward when she was on her bed. And then I went over to her, and Gabby actually growled at me. Now, I didn't think that was actually the worst thing in the world, but you got to be careful if your dog growls at you, especially when they're little puppies. And that's part of Gabby's temperament as the type of dog that she is. She tends to be very possessive, and she doesn't ever want to lose that. And she didn't necessarily trust me at that point, which is fine. But what I'm telling you is that Gabby had this, and she growled at me. And so one of the rules that I have in my household is that we don't allow any barking or any growling at another dog or even a human. But we begin to work at teaching the dogs how to begin to trust us. So a lot of the issues with dogs where they're probably attacking another dog is, one, they probably don't respect the other dog. And that's not so important to me. What is important to me is that the dog understands that if you decide to attack my other dog, okay, that now I am going to hold you accountable, and yes, you're going to get in trouble with the thing that you like the least, okay? And I began to really put them into situations to where they have to make choices that are going to help them to understand that the other dog is just fine. I don't want you to be so interested in the other dog, and that I'm more important than that dog is. But if you choose to go after my other dog, that yes, absolutely, we're going to make you uncomfortable because it's a bad choice, because it's going to lead us to the emergency room and to these bills that, heck, I honestly just don't want to pay. So I think that it's important when you're thinking about your dogs that are fighting with each other, and especially if it's only happened a few times, that you go back and you look at the foundational things of, what is your leash walking looking like? What is your coming when called look like? What is your stay work during the day looking like? And what I really recommend is a lot of stay work for the dogs. Let me give you one scenario in particular that I like to use that I think is useful. If I have two dogs that have been fighting, I'll train one dog to be on their place and they'll be on the down there. But then the other dog, the dog that's been getting attacked, I will begin to play a little fetch game with that dog where the dog is running out and coming back and doing all this motion with one of their favorite toys. But I'm going to have some help, and every time that dog decides to break its place, we're going to remind the dog that you must stay there while I'm playing with the other dog. And then vice versa. I switch. I make the other dog practice their place while I have the other dog running back and forth and playing with me. Because I want the dog to understand, if I ask you to stay somewhere, please respect me while I'm playing with my other dog. But then I'm going to be fair and I'm going to allow you to do that. But a lot of times what happens is maybe there's a toy out, it's been left out, one dog likes it, the other dog says I want it, they say no, and now you've got to fight. And I just want them to understand that they're not allowed to fight over things. Now, I'll be very blunt here, and I don't expect everybody to raise their dogs this way, but if I walked in a room and I saw two children or two dogs fighting over something, I really don't care who started it. Everybody's going to get in trouble. Everybody. The person that thought that they got offended, it's their job to stay out of trouble. And so if I have to walk into a room with dogs or children where that's going on, then everybody gets in trouble. And I just think that that's fair, because that will then make them avoid the conflict that I don't want them to have with each other. So that's really the way that I would go about it. But hey, just want to give you some hope. It can be fixed. It's not the work isn't difficult, but it does require a lot of diligence to work with the dogs for several weeks, showing them and reestablishing those rules. And so, hey, if this is you and your dog and you're struggling with this, I'd love to help you and to show you how that you should have hope and how your dogs can 99% of the time coexist and live a happy lifestyle. All right, guys. Well, okay, so the next topic I got, is reward history. So I'm going to take a quick sip of water. Hey, thanks to everybody that's joining in tonight. We so appreciate you guys. All right, so reward history. So what in the world does that mean? So reward history is how often is your dog receiving a reward over a long period of time. One thing that I do with my dogs when I have them as puppies is I reward them a considerable amount for sitting on my left-hand side and moving together with my body as I move forward and backward. We actually just make a drill out of it, and it's something that we do all of the time. And I show them this day after day after day after day. And yeah, it's just practice. But it's so important that when you're trying to form a belief in the dog, that you actually have this very diligent practice for several weeks, because then what the brain is going to do is the brain is going to believe that that is actually going to be possible, that they can receive the reward. Why is this so important for dogs and maybe not so important for a human? Well, those things actually, reward history in dogs generates hope. And hope is an actual physiological thing that you can experience. And one of the things that hope does both for dogs and humans is when you're waiting for the reward to come, your brain is actually rewarding you for that, for those moments that you're anticipating and waiting for that thing to come. Actually, some of the science is out that says that your brain releases 50% more dopamine whenever you become hopeful. But the only way that your dog can actually become hopeful and defeat things like separation anxiety is by systematically seeing rewards happen in the moments that they're maybe most worried about. Now, they can't be in a worried state of mind when they receive the reward. They have to be in a calmer or a focused state of mind to be able to receive the reward. But reward history is one of these concepts that we talk a lot about, and all it just goes back to say is that, hey guys, it's so important to be diligent with your practice, but when you are diligent, there will come a point in time where your dog's brain will automatically reward it without you having to dispense a reward. each and every time. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. So far I've covered my dog as a rescue. I've also covered what to do with a fear-aggressive and avoidant dog that's really avoiding humans. The next thing that I went over is once a dog has attacked somebody else, are they always going to be unpredictable? I just covered reward history and how we can create hope in your dog. And so now I actually want to go over a tool that I haven't talked about in a little bit, but I think it's important. It's the clicker. So the clicker is really this really fantastic tool. Now, it's not like a panacea that it's going to fix a whole bunch of things. As a matter of fact, using a clicker incorrectly can actually amplify your problems. And you know what? I'm going to jot that down, okay? Because I think I want to talk about that next time, about how a clicker can amplify problems and what types of situations are sometimes trainers using that are going to amplify those. So let me just kind of give you some advantages with clickers. So the big thing that a clicker does is it obviously utilizes the speed of sound. So I'm going to go back to the topic that I mentioned before about how the brain releases dopamine, to make memories and to experience pleasure. So when you've actually conditioned a clicker the proper way, what will happen then is when the clicker goes off and that sound hits the dog's ear and hits the brain at the moment that it receives that signal is going to release that dopamine. The reason that this is advantageous is because if you're actually, let's say 10, 20 steps away from the dog and you begin to walk towards the dog, even walk quickly, and then you dispense the food, the dog isn't going to actually release the dopamine until it probably sees the treat or until it probably tastes the treat. But if you condition a clicker right, the clicker will actually make the dog believe that the food and the treat is already in its mouth at the moment that the sound hits it, and the food could actually be 5, 10, 20 seconds away from actually happening. So one of the big things that the clicker does is it moves the reward much more rapidly than any human could. So let me give you a scenario where this could be useful. I actually just trained this with a young lady just a little while ago. We had her dog in a downstay, and then we moved away probably about 15 or 20 paces. So we turned around, the dog was doing exactly what we wanted it to do, and then we clicked, and then immediately after we clicked, we began to praise, and we walked back to the dog and rewarded it. But the reward actually happened at the moment that the dog heard the click. So that's one of the advantages. Now, that's the second advantage. So one is the speed of sound, and second, it actually allows you to build distance. So when you use the clicker and you're further away, you can actually accelerate that training of how far you are away from the dog by using a clicker. Now, one really big advantage to me, okay, is it gets the food out of your hands. It's really easy to get trapped by, hey, you've put food in your hand and you're getting the dog to do all these things, it's responding wonderfully, and then the dog does what you want and you give it food. But one of the problems with that technique, okay, is the dog can actually become dependent on the food in your hand. It's a little challenging, and I'll admit everybody struggles with this, including myself with dogs. It's a little challenging to know when do I actually take the food out of my hand and just ask the dog to do it just for my voice. And it's a process, and you're gonna have to guess. So let me just kind of go back over the clicker one more time, okay? So what are 3 advantages of using a clicker? Well, one is that the speed of sound is incredibly fast. It's 767 miles per hour. So that actually allows you to be off a great distance from your dog and then click, and your dog is gonna know that, hey, when she is 10, 20, 30 steps away, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But then the other major advantage is that it actually allows you to get the food out of your hand. And let me just go back over this because I think this is important. When I teach the clicker, I actually teach like what's called a triangle technique. This is something that I've just made up. So I have people put the clicker in the right hand, okay? And I have them click, and then I have them begin to praise, And then after they praise, they're going to use their left hand to go behind their back to grab the food. So I teach click, talk, reach. And I really emphasize that because that's going to help your dog to learn how to look at your face instead of your hand. Okay. All right. So the last thing that I want to go over, and just to clarify this for people, is rewarding, okay, with food versus luring. I did cover it just a moment ago, but I want to go just a little bit more in depth right here. So rewarding your dog with food, here's what that actually means. That means that the dog did something that you wanted it to do, let's just say like sitting on your left-hand side, and that after the dog has completed that then the dog gets to taste the food that it wanted, thereby making the emotion and helping the dog learn, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, now the thing that people get confused all the time is that they lure their dog with food, and luring and baiting a dog with food means that the food is in your hand, you're going to bring the scent to the dog's nose and begin to move its body, and so then as you use that scent makes the dog do the sit. So if you continue to do that, what happens is the dog's brain is going to say, this scent moved in this particular way means that I should sit, and I should remember that because of the way that the food tastes. So what you want to do in your training is, it's important, and this is why I like leash training, it's important that when you give many of your commands that you use a leash to communicate to the dog the skill that you wanted to do when there's no scent involved. That's using pressure to communicate to the dog. And then when the dog actually does the thing that you want, then bringing in the food for it to taste, okay, which is rewarding the dog, that's going to actually be a pretty effective thing. So one thing that I teach a lot of people is use your leash to begin to create the thing that you want the dog to do. Right before the dog does it, say the name of the skill that you want your dog to do, and then once the dog has done it, grab the reward, the food, and then feed the dog. Now it is easier if you have the food in your hand, you get the dog to do what you want and you feed it, but eventually you're gonna have to get rid of the food in your hand. Well, hey guys, I hope that's been helpful for you. I'm gonna take a look and see if there's any questions that anybody has asked. I saw a couple. Oh, hey, there it is on Sarah. Sarah, you said, preach it on the rescue dogs. With your help, I'm now transforming the rescue dogs. Hey, Sarah, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you and everything that everything that you did with your dog. So, hey, thanks so much for working with us. Really appreciate you, and it was great to see everything that your dog did. Well, hey guys. Okay, so Mandy had a question. Can you use your voice in place of a clicker? So here's the easy answer. The easy answer is yes. You can use your voice in place of the clicker. Here's the problem, okay? The problem with using your voice instead of the clicker is that your voice is going to have a lot of different inflections. So for example, okay, a lot of people, myself included, will use the word yes, or will use like a word like okay. And so what happens is that sometimes you're like yes, and sometimes your dog does it really awesome and you're like yes. So what happens there is that you're going to begin to change what the clicker is, which is what's called a moment marker. And a moment marker, what that's intended to do is to tell the dog that that specific thing that you just did leads to this very specific consequence, like me throwing a ball. But what people begin to get confused is that they'll use a verbal moment marker, like a word like yes, and they'll confuse it and turn it into praise. So for example, let's just say that I was going to use okay as my moment marker to tell my dog that it did a good job at sitting. So I would say sit, then I would see the dog's butt hit the floor, and at the moment it hit the floor, I would say okay. And then what might happen is that I might actually say the word okay again. I'm like, okay, you're such a good dog. Okay, good job. And so everything that I did there, when you saw my face brighten up and I begin to give that praise, the word okay becomes part of the praise. And so as you begin to use this word ambiguously, where it actually is used as a moment marker and used as praise, it can actually confuse your dog. I'll give you an example, okay? So I was doing some protection work with one of my dogs, and my dog was in a downstay. And what the dog was supposed to do next is that when the bad guy took off, my dog was allowed to go and chase after him and to, bite the sleeve and to try to stop him from leaving. So I had my dog in a down, the bad guy was there, and I was talking with the bad guy. The bad guy asked me a question, and I said the word okay to the bad guy. And at that moment, my dog then said, oh, that means that I can go get him and I can, bite the piece of equipment. And that my dog was not wrong. Gabby wasn't wrong in believing that. But it wasn't what I wanted to do. This is why a clicker is better, because when you use a clicker, it's not actually going to, you're not going to use it in a piece of conversation where somebody's going to ask you a question and you're going to click the clicker. But you're going to use words like okay and yes and different things like that, and it might confuse your dog. But here's the thing, like those types of things happen. People misuse clickers all the time too. But I just think that it's important to actually use verbal, to be able to use clickers, okay? And then just be very specific with your verbal moment markers. I'll give you a really funny one. I have a camera, I have a GoPro, and this GoPro actually has voice commands. So I can actually have the camera right here, and then I could say, GoPro, take a picture. Well, if I ever have my dog right next to the GoPro and I'm going to take a picture, I would love to use it as a voice command to tell the camera to take a picture of my dog. But it's so funny because I'll have the camera up and I'll tell it to take a picture, and my dog believes that that word go means that it should get a reward. So I've had my dog a couple of times when I say GoPro, take a picture, GoPro, take a picture, that the dog will maybe bite the camera or try to get up and break the shot. So that's one of the drawbacks to verbal moment markers that people really want to be careful. Hey, but thanks so much for the question. So Coral, you had another one. So you click first and say the command? No. Okay. So here, I'll give you the piece of knowledge. Coral, you may want to grab a pen and paper just to write this down, but you can always go back and rewatch this. So let me just give you the structure real quick. Let me see if I can actually, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. Okay, so on the screen right here, so you see the letters A, B, C? So right there where you have A, B, C, okay, the behavior is the thing that you want the dog to do, and the consequence is the thing that you're going to reward with. So like, handing your dog food. So, okay. So right here, what you should see now is I drew a line between the B and the C, and at the bottom of that you see the click. So you're going to say the command. The dog is going to perform the behavior. You're going to click, and then after you click, that's when you're going to dispense the reward. So you say the voice command right before the dog does the thing that you wanted to do. Immediately after the dog has done what you do, that's when you click, and then after you click, that's when you grab the reward. Okay, I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't make any sense, please send us a message. I'll shoot a video. I actually have one on my YouTube channel. I have one on my YouTube channel that will actually show you that. And so, hey, I just want to say, it looks like my cousin joined in. Hey, so great to see you. Glad that you could make it. Love you very much. Glad that you're here. Well, hey guys, do any of y'all have any other questions? And if you need clarification on any of these things that I said, hey, I'm more than happy to answer that. Hey, so appreciate each and every one of you guys that's joined in tonight. If you're watching this after the fact, hey, it just means so much to me that you're here, that you're watching this. If there's ever anything that I can do to help you with your dogs, I'd love to do these question and answers and give you that. I wish we could talk back and forth instead of me just reading, but love you guys so very much. But really, really appreciate that. I do want to mention the contest that we have one more time, just for those of y'all that are joining in late. I don't want you to miss the opportunity. So for those of y'all that don't know, I've been doing some pretty big contests over the weekend. The past 3 weekends, we've given away, I've probably given away close to $300 or $400 worth of dog food, and the first place winner is winning a bag of their choice. As a matter of fact, I just shipped a bag to New Orleans to the person that won last weekend. So hey, you don't even have to be in Houston. This could be, anywhere that you can hear my voice. We'll ship a bag of your dog's favorite food to you. So what I want to do is I want to give you guys just a little bit of an advantage. So everybody that's actually signed up for our newsletter, okay, they're getting a heads up notice about the contest rules, and they're also getting a heads up notice about the specific time that the contest is going to start, which gives them a little bit of a lead. So what I'm going to propose to you guys, for those of y'all that want to win like a free bag of dog food, sign up for our newsletter. But what I'm going to do for anybody that signs up for our newsletter, okay, this evening, I'm going to give you a choice of a prize. We're going to pick 3 people at random that sign up for a newsletter, and okay, we're going to give away some of this delicious food that I have. This food is actually, this is Origin. It's the puppy food. You shouldn't necessarily use this for your large breed puppy. Maybe this is for a smaller breed puppy. This is one of the choices that you have. The second choice is I also have this bag of Acana dog food. This is the Heritage Meats formula. It's actually made with Angus beef, Yorkshire pork, and grass-fed lamb. My dogs absolutely love this quite a bit. So that's another one of the choices. And then the last choice that you have, okay, if you sign up for our newsletter, is we're also going to give away these, okay? Every single morning, okay, before I head off to work, I go and play with my dogs, and we throw these to really kind of wear them out. So if you see the link, hey, thanks Mandy for putting that up. If you see that link that Mandy is sharing right there, if you'll go to that link, sign up for the newsletter, we're going to pick 3 people at random, and then once we pick you, we'll send you an email, okay? And you'll be able to to say, hey, I want this bag of dog food. I want this bag of dog food for my dog, and we'll get that shipped out to you in the next couple of days. But then we're going to send out another newsletter on Friday, and we're going to go over the contest rules and when we're actually going to make the post that's going to allow you to enter to win the big prize, which is like up to $100 worth of dog food. So, hey guys, does anybody have any other questions? Okay, really have enjoyed this tonight. Hope you have gotten something out of this. I was just told that there was another question, and let me find this real quick. Oh, there you are. Okay, hi. Hey, Jeanette, good to see you. Hi, my puppy gets anxious when my 4-year-old runs away from him. What can I do to help him with this possessiveness of him? So I think, Jeanette, that the best way to go about this is really, like, I use it so much, but it's such an effective skill. It's teaching the place command. Look, it's important for your dog to understand that, hey, yeah, we know that you have prey drive. We know that you like to chase after things, okay? That when he's running, that, hey, you have to actually stay. So here's what I recommend. I want you to get yourself an elevated bed for your dog. We do sell those, but you can also find those on Amazon as well. And anyway, get yourself an elevated bed, and I want you to begin to feed your dog on this bed. And I actually want you to take it outside, and I want you to put your dog on the bed. You're gonna need to use a leash. I'd really recommend using one of the, I'm gonna pull that out real quick. I'd really recommend using a slip leash in the beginning for this. And then, okay, and then what I want you to do is I want you to allow your child to begin to run away, but then when your child runs away and your dog comes off of the bed, I want you to use the leash to put your dog back on, and then immediately relax the leash, ask your child to come back, and then after several seconds, I want you to get your child to run away again. I want you to do this several times over and over until the dog sees the child run away, chooses not to come off the bed, and then I want you to begin to calmly reward your dog, because you're dealing with prey drive. If you tell him what a good boy he is and you begin to pet him right at the moment he made a good decision, it might actually work against you. So you'll want him to be on the bed, nice and calm, begin to slowly pet him if he makes the choice to not chase after your son, and then keep practicing that. But that's the way that I would actually start showing him to not be so possessive and wanting to chase after your child. And so was it your Well, you said your 4-year-old, so not to chase after your 4-year-old. One thing that I do like to mention here is that sometimes I see 4-year-olds are teasing the dog a little too much, and I think that that's unfair. But it is important for your dog to learn how to stay in a down, and the elevated bed is the quickest way that I know how to do it. So, all right, guys. Well, hey, I don't have anything else. I'm going to take a quick scroll through to make sure that I didn't miss anybody. Okay. All right. So got that one, got that one, got that one. Okay. Oh, here's a question. Hey, Cynthia, thanks so much for joining in tonight. I'm going to go ahead and take this question. So why is a possessive dog on the bed though? So, well, look, I think that the term, why is a possessive dog on the bed? Well, I think that the word possessive, I don't know that the dog is actually possessive over the child. It's possible, but I just don't think that the dog is possessive in this sense. The reason that we're putting the dog onto the bed, okay, is to be actually able to differentiate for the dog where the good behavior ends and the unwanted behavior begins. And what happens with dogs when they have to step up onto a bed and step down, that action, when it's coupled together with leash pressure, sends triggers to the dog's brain telling them that, hey, you've reached a boundary and you need to stay back on the other side of this boundary. So if that's the edge of the bed and the dog comes off and then the pressure increases here, then going back on the bed tells the pressure to go down, thereby telling the dog's brain that, hey, I got to become a little bit calmer. And so then every time that the child runs away, and then the goal of the dog coming into prey drive and chasing after the child doesn't work, but then the dog actually gets frustrated and becomes calm and gets back down in the bed, and then reward goes there. What's happening is you have a great way to differentiate. The dog is actually going to get counter conditioned eventually, because as the child runs and the dog gets rewarded, then the dog is going to believe that being down on the bed is going to do that. So the place command for impulse control, like we use it. The place command is a really basic way to teach a dog impulse control, because it draws a definitive boundary where the dog has to consciously make a choice to do a behavior. And when they make that behavior, we can attach an emotional consequence that tells the dog's brain that is a mistake, and then the dog's brain is allowed to make different options. And that's really what impulse control is. When you think about what stay work is, it's impulse control. If you tell your dog to sit and then a squirrel runs by, the dog has to understand that sitting and maintaining the sit are far more rewarding than, hey, that if I break my sit, that is frustrating, the lack of reward, and uncomfortable, which means pressure and maybe uncomfortable pressure. And as the dog brain begins to see, like, hey, pleasure and comfort versus frustration and discomfort, the brain is going to move in the direction of comfort and comfort and pleasure. And what dog trainers want to happen, almost all of us want to happen, is that when you begin to frustrate a dog a little bit, and then they actually get comfortable and experience pleasure, then ultimately the dogs are going to experience hope. And hope defeats a slew of bad behaviors. But the mistake that a lot of people believe is that when the dog is in a nervous state and you try to give it food, one, the food doesn't taste so good because nobody eats food well when they're nervous. But then two, it's possible that in the nervous state that the dog is eating, the dog is being reinforced for that act. That's why I really try to stop people when they have nervous dogs. Stop petting them, because that petting is telling the mind that this is a good thing. You don't want to ever pet a nervous or anxious dog. Now, there's a difference in technique, and I'm going to go over this very quickly. If you have a nervous dog, you can put a hand on them, and a kind of a firm hand, and you make like a bite, okay? But it's not a hard bite. It's just like just kind of a hand on the shoulder. But don't begin to rub, because the moment you begin to rub, it begins to reinforce the state of mind that the dog is in. But if you put a hand on there, it's pressure, and that can actually deflate and calm a dog. So the place command, just going back to what you said, the place command is a great way to show the dog a boundary for impulse control, and it can set you up to build sit stays, down stays, stand stays, and a whole bunch of things because it's easy for the dog to win. Well guys, hey, it's been 51 minutes. I'm gonna drink some water. I'm gonna hang out for the next 30 seconds. I so appreciate every single one of you that's engaged with me. Would love to help you. Hey, if the advice was useful, but you think that you could benefit from seeing a video of this, why don't you send me a video and say, hey, or send me a question and say, hey, I would love to see what that looks like, and I would be more than happy to show you what this looks like in real life. So I'm gonna take a sip. If anybody else has questions, feel free to ask those now. All right, guys, so don't see anything else. I'm gonna make 10 seconds. Make sure nobody has any questions. I so very much appreciate each and every one of you guys. We'll be back next Wednesday. Hey, if you signed up for that newsletter, okay, thanks so much for doing that. We're gonna get your prizes to you quickly. Hey, and if you're watching this tonight after we record it live, go sign up for our newsletter. If you do that, we're giving away prizes. We're gonna announce our big contest over the weekend. But hey, love you guys. Thank you so much, and y'all have a great evening. We'll talk to you later. Bye.